Welcome to my whole whimsical girl mixed media face portrait series, trying to help you create whimsical faces in your art journals and on canvas that you love. Plus making it as easy as possible, because art is way more fun when it's not hard, right? So last time, I was gonna say week, but I drop videos every other week. So my last video was all about my beloved Pitt Pen. What is it? What's the new redesign? How does it work to help with your mixed media portraits? However, the Pitt Pen has been the only pigment marker or pen available on the market for as long as I can remember, and I've searched and searched over and over, like this couldn't possibly be the only color pigment marker on the market, right? So I was doing my usual annual search for additional pigment markers, and this came up in my search results. It looks like Staedtler, who is, a big giant in the office supply world, has a few art supplies, not as many as Faber-Castell, who makes Pitt pens. They have a pigment art pen. So I've not opened my box yet. I'm going to compare it to my beloved Pitt pens. We're gonna look at price, we're gonna look at use, if I can use them in the same way and save my members money. I'm all about it. So I can't wait to dive into this unboxing and testing of the Staedtler Pigment Arts Pen. Does the Pitt Pen have a contender? I think it might. This is like a big deal. All right, let's watch and stay tuned. Let's dive into the juicy details of this pen. I'm dying of curiosity. Now, I hope that you watched my last video. Oh my gosh, if you haven't, you really will probably wanna go back and see it, because it's how I test the Faber-Castell Pitt pens. And it's how it's like the most, it's like, it's really my favorite way of doing mixed media. I'm very passionate about it. So long story short, I need pigment-based pens, and the only ones I've ever known in the Faber-Castell. All right. So what do we have here? These just look like, from the outside, like basic pens. How big is this? Oh, okay, so that's actually very teensy-weensy. Interesting. For some reason, I thought it would be bigger. All right, well, this kind of reminds me of the bigger, this is the skinny pens. These are the skinny barrel by Faber-Castell. So these are the ones that after and this is what you learned in my last video, is they discontinued these big fat ones. So for a few years there, I was only left with the skinny barreled babies. So let's see how they compare. They're like exactly the same. That's kind of bananas. Weird. I'm always fascinated. They're not the same. Sometimes you have different companies and they have a product and their actual barrel is identical, and it's so strange. And it gets into the world of like black labeling and white labeling and private labeling and all that nonsense, which I'm not gonna get into in this video, but super interesting. So cool. I mean, I'm just glad that Pitt has a little bit of competition. I feel like they are a super fine art brand, like exceptional, and so is Staedtler in their defense. But because they don't have any competition in this pigment marker, they can kind of charge whatever they want, and they're not cheap. So things I'm testing. First of all, I just want to kind of organize these in color families. They do have 2 purples and a kind of a magenta-y. So lots of pinks, which I love because I do lots of girls. How many? There's 36 colors, and I do know for a fact that the skinny barrel Pitt pens come in 90 colors. So they're kind of winning there. Let's just see though. These are really pretty. These are really, really pretty. I'm not gonna lie. They feel good in my hand. So lots of pretty greens. I love that. And this is my set of 30. So they're pretty comparable in that regard. So these are the Pitt pens colors for green and blues, and these are the colors for the Staedtler. Oh, they have quite a lot of blues. So, okay, you have similar families. There's more of these, obviously, because we have 6 more in the pack. And then comparing these ones to these ones, you get a lot more pinks and purples, which I actually like because I hate the color yellow. Fun fact about me. Freaking hate yellow. I never use it. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, really kind of 4, and there's only really 1. So that makes me happy. I don't miss a yellow. There could be no yellows and I wouldn't even notice because I hate them. Now, one thing that is missing, at least for me, is there's no skin, flesh tone, right? But obviously flesh is a very relative term because there's all different shades of quote unquote flesh tones. There is one that's kind of cream color, and we do have this might work. So I'm just looking for anything, and obviously a brown of any kind will work. So it's a little bit shy in that department. compartment. Perhaps a pink could work. So what I'm most interested in, to be honest, is whether I can use these in my Hamburger System. And in case you're like, what the hell is that, lady? Well, that is my favorite way to layer my mixed media products to make really beautiful pieces of artwork, but really I use them because I make hundreds of like whimsical girls. So today I'm going to be testing to see if these work in my Hamburger System, and I am sacrificing this portrait that I did years and years ago to see if it will work. And actually I think she already has a layer of sealant down, but just to make sure, I will put one down before I begin. So how does the Hamburger System work? Well, you have layers, acrylic being the most recent one. So first we have, you can start with collage. This one just doesn't happen to have it, which is also fine to skip this layer. Then we have paint and or gesso. Then we have our little detail work, which can be a water soluble or permanent pen like Pitt Pen. Then I like to use gelatos for shading. Now in this one, I actually used pan pastels, which work beautifully as well. And then we seal everything. And then here, ding, 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 is where my Pitt pens have been the only instrument that I use after the sealing layer. And it's a big deal because that's where we get the depth that we see in all of these paintings. So in my last week's video, she had very subtle shading and I was using the Pitt pens over the sealer to amplify all of her shading, add some hair strands, add some eye makeup. So testing how it would work and also testing how it would work if you can erase it afterwards. How long does it take to kind of set in before you can erase it? So I want to do the same test. So even though there's no skin colors, because I am looking to use this on my whimsical girls, we'll see if any of those can come close and kind of help us out in this same way. So first you need a sealer. I just like Mod Podge. It's cheap and it's readily available. So after you're done painting, you can seal your canvas. Now there's fine art alternatives to Mod Podge. If you are against it, there are absolutely a lot of products. And I have a whole playlist about my Hamburger System, each layer. There's a lot to it. It also became a published book, so you can absolutely binge those. And I will link to that in the description box for you. But it's my favorite thing to do. I cannot get enough. And there's so much to do. You can do so much with these pens. So I'm just gonna dry this with my hair dryer, and then I'm gonna come back in and I'm gonna play around with some of these colors. We can also play around with her hair colors. So grab colors that kind of match your project if you want to try this at home. And then I'm going to do the test. I'm going to show you how they work compared to the Pitt pens and put them to the test. And actually, while I'm waiting for that to dry, and another thing we can test, this is the test I did with my Pitt pens. So this is actually a Faber-Castell, I just said Faber-Castell, Faber-Castell watercolor marker. This is the Pitt pen activated with water immediately after putting it down. And then this shows how permanent they really are, okay? So that's very permanent. So, and my argument here was that really any pen that you put down after a few seconds is going to react with water. Why? Because it's still wet. So like anything, even a like alcohol marker would probably move. So it's not really a fair test. So what I will do here, because I don't really know, I'm assuming that these are also permanent. It says pigment on the box. So, and it says permanent with high light fastness, brilliant colors. It sounds just like a Pitt pen, and I'm hoping it is. I forgot to move this while it was still wet. I'm yabbering my face off here. So yes, okay. So it was still fresh and I am able to move it. And my theory is if these are truly pigmented, which are permanent, if I wait a few minutes and I try that with this line, it will not move. So let's put this to the hamburger test next. So I'm gonna dry this with my hair dryer and we'll come back and we'll see if it works in the same way. I'm hoping they do because I want alternatives. And I'm also gonna look at the prices and see how they price compare against the Pitt pens as well. All right, so I was looking online and it looks like a studio box of 60 for the skinny barrel Faber-Castell are 200 and a pack of 6 are 21. Now, if you go over to Staedtler, this is the one I have. It was 53 for 36 and it's 19 for 12. So 19 for 12 or 21 for $6. So the Pitt pens are about twice as expensive. So that's good news for us if these work in the same way, because we could save a lot of money. That being said, nothing's gonna be a replacement for the juicy nib size. Like, I gotta have it. I just gotta have it. And I'll show you, in case you missed last week's, like, it's just gorge. So the way I use the Pitt pens is I brush them on, and then there's a time where they are juicy, just like they're juicy on the paper at first. Same thing, but they're on the sealer layer, so they're much juicier because they can slip and slide around, right, on the sealer layer, which is, this was a matte Mod Podge that I used. So even though it's matte, there's a little sheen to it. Okay, but you have this lovely window where you can move and cruise these around. And what's even cooler about that is that in case you make a mistake, again, because of the sealant layer, you can also wipe them off. You can erase. So when you can erase, when you're doing portraits, that can give you a ton of confidence and really up-level your game. So before I dive in there, I want to just confirm that this is going to be permanent now that it's had a chance to settle in. And yes, it is totally permanent. And the same thing, so I think these will be identical in ink compared to the Pitt pen. So that's great news, you guys. That means we have, for the first time, a Pitt pen alternative that's also cheaper. That's a really big deal, especially if you're a student of mine, because I use these all the time. So that's really why I'm so happy about this. Now, I will still personally buy the Pitt pens because I work on such a big scale that these are a little puny for me personally, but I also know that most of my members of my Mixed Media Society at Awesome Art School don't work the ginormo size that I like to work. So this is probably perfect for a lot of my students. So I'm super excited. Look at that, I went outside the lines. That squiggy sound means it's working. So excited. Okay, so how do I use this for whimsical girls? So I only really have a couple choices. So here, again, I will start with the pen so you can see how I would use them here. This is such an old painting, it's so strange. I did this painting, oh my gosh, years ago, maybe like 8 years ago or something. So it's really nice to see her. Nice to see you again, little painting. So here's the lightest flesh color that I would be using if I was to use my Pitt pens, which I would for a Caucasian girl. And that squeaky sound means it's working. Brings me so much joy. And again, there's that little window where it's wet, so I can go ahead and smoosh it with my finger. Now let's see what kind of color this is. I don't really know. See, this is also good for people that are scared to add dramatic shading. I'm not scared, so I love it. I love it all. But this actually would be good for super light skinned whimsical girl drawing. That would be probably a lovely way to get started with shading, because you're starting with, it's like just barely darker than the paint color. So it's, I know a lot of people are scared to get started, but again, don't be scared with a hamburger because you can erase, you know? I really try to make art as easy, as fun as possible. Like, no one's life is stressful. Let's not make our art stressful. Let's make that as easy as possible. So let's see. I kind of did the right with the Pitt pen. I did the left with that. So this, you can see the Pitt pen is a little bit darker. This is lovely. I didn't think this was actually gonna do anything, but it actually does. So again, you can use your fingers. That's quite lovely. All right, way to go, Staedtler. I am so genuinely thrilled to have an alternative that's more affordable, you guys, because it really isn't the size of the barrel, it's the ink inside that we care about. Okay, so let's try this pinky one. I already had kind of a pink shade going here too. So does that work? I mean, certainly for this skin tone, it would. So that's also fantastic. It's kind of fitting right in with my design. I didn't plan that. I literally was looking for paintings that hadn't gone through my hamburger rigor. They were just acrylic. But this hamburger way is a great way to kind of finish off your acrylic drawings and paintings. It's a safe, easy way to add details. Oh, I'm loving this pink. Hello, beautiful pink. Okay, well, let's keep this going. What about the lips? She could use a little lip oomph. Hello. The squeaky means it's working. Oh my God, it's so good. I'm so happy right now, you guys. Have fun. And honestly though, you know, having the option to have a smaller nib is nice. you know, if you're like a normal person and you have normal size paintings. Oh, that's just lovely. Oh my goodness. Let's see, we could add a little pink to her little eye ducty things. We could give her a little bit more drama on her eyes for sure. All right, so this is the only kind of like next darker skin color. Do I know if this is gonna work? I have no idea. What if I put it here? I'm running out of clean fingers. That does happen. I want to see if that is at all a possibility, or if I need to leave this to girls that have a little bit darker skin color. Might be okay. What if we put it in the darkest regions? It should be like her ear and along the side of her face. Is that too dark? What's the jump between colors? Kind of blend it up with a lighter color. Actually, I don't even think that is too dark. It is actually kind of acceptable. It just needs to be. It's not so much the color family as long as it's just a little bit darker. I have the same thing with gelatos. A lot of people, they keep changing the color names of those markers, but in reality, as long as it's just a little bit shade darker, it's actually fine, even if it's in a different color family. So again, I'm kind of looking, it's a little bit more orange, but actually I think this would be okay. So again, that's good. And the reason, again, I'm really interested in this specifically like for mixed media portraits, because I do so many of them. I don't want you to get the set and then be like, oh great, now I can't freaking use it because, you know, I have no skin tone. So actually, I think this is fine. I think it's like the cinnamon. It's sort of the equivalent to cinnamon. I'll get cinnamon out because that's the one I use the most. Here we go. So these are the skin colors basically for Faber-Castell for the new sets that they just came out with that I just reviewed. So this I would use for the lightest skin tones. This is basically the next one, and then down on we go. So this, or how this looks. Yeah, it really is like the same as the cinnamon. Yes, oh my God, you guys, I am so excited. That's a really like meaningful, yeah, I'm really excited. The Pitt Pens were really unaffordable for quite a number of people. So I am so delighted to be able to have a recommendation. I feel like I've been waiting so long. I'm like, yes. All right, so again, and what if you're like, oh my God, what happened? She was perfect. No, she's all screwed up. Don't forget. Now, sometimes everything won't come off because they do kind of turn permanent, like I was saying, but you can certainly knock back some of these areas. Look at that. Oh, I forgot I had all that green in there. And in case you don't have a chance to go back and watch the full review of the Pitt Pen, I will kind of finish her off. And that doesn't mean murder. Finish her off here, and I will do another layer of sealers so you can see really how she would come together if I was gonna do this quote unquote for reals. I'm so close. So I'm gonna dry this because it's all wet, and then I will come back, but I'll show you how I would use Pitt Pens to kind of bring her to fruition and then be done. All right, so I am gonna use the little pink that I had and kind of touch up these areas that I was getting very flippant with, because I want to do a true, you know, a hardy experiment. But if I was going to shade this, and of course my finger is also filthy, so it's kind of blending that in as well. But basically here we could have a little bit heavier shading on the right than the left, and that would justify the fact that this would be darker over there, and it would kind of make more visual sense. But I would use it just like this, and you don't have to blend it, but you might as well. You're standing right there, so might as well go for it. Okay, on the bottom of the nose. Now, one thing I did notice with both of these sets, there isn't a white in either the Pitt Pen or these Staedtler ones, which I find very peculiar. And I genuinely would enjoy adding some beautiful details to the hair in these colors. And again, adding some to the eyes. Now, all of these colors, they are not transparent, but they're not opaque either. They're sort of a beautiful combination. The white in the Pitt Pens are opaque, but the other colors tend not to be. So you can experiment when you get your set of what can kind of what. So my yellow is not showing up on the hair because this doesn't have any opacity. But again, for the white Pitt Pen, absolutely does. And actually, I'll show you while I'm here. I want to put like a highlight on her nose. You would totally be able to see it. Same thing with her lips. You can actually see it quite well. So that's kind of neat. Okay, add another sparkle to her eye. I could also add some more highlights to her hair. I just want to show you how awesomely that is actually going to work for you for the eyes. Put some gray at the top, and that will kind of reduce her look of staring weirdly into space. I did like that look of having the darker areas, the edges of her eyelid. Look, and we even have it black here, so we can get some more outlining done. And again, if you mess up, well, you can just erase as long as you get there in time. This is a beautiful little fine tip friend. Love this. Let's thicken up her lashes a little, shall we? Ooh la la, look at that. Baby bottom ones, eyebrows. Yeah, these are fantastic. I love their little nibs, the little baby nibs. This would be great. You could have these and the set by Faber-Castell. You could have your cake and eat it too. Oh my goodness. So what you might have missed if you didn't see last week's video is you can actually, with these pens, you can do layers of sealing on top of each other, so that if you're happy but you wanted to kind of keep playing and experimenting, you could do another layer of sealant over the top of her, and that would lock everything in, and then you could practice being as brazen or risque with that sealing as you like to, if that's something you wanted to kind of practice at or experiment with without having the fear of making a mistake. Kind of playing up this side being darker than the other. So I hope this gives you some hints and gives you an amazing use for these very, very cool art products. If you learned something new today, subscribe for more awesome tips. And pretty soon I'm going to be starting a series on watercolor. So if that's something that you want to learn more about, then stay tuned for next week's video, as I will link to the playlist right here on the screen for you so you can binge the other videos in this Whimsical Girl mixed media series. All right, go play, have fun, and I will see you in the next video.